wanted to ask you if you plan, if you're going to read the entire actual text of the health care bill before the committee votes on it.
I don't expect to actually read the legislative language, because reading the legislative language is among the more confusing things I've ever read in my life. We write in this committee and legislate with plain English, and I think most of us can understand most of that. When you get into the legislative language, Senator Conrad actually read some of it, several pages of it, the other day, and I don't think anybody had a clue, including people who served on this committee for decades, what he was talking about. So legislative language is so arcane, so confusing, refers to other parts of the code, and after the first syllable, insert the word, X, and it really doesn't make much sense. So the idea of reading the plain English version, yeah, I'll probably do that. The idea of reading the legislative language, it's just anyone who says that they can do that and actually get much out of it is I think, trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
Do you think?
But that's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked it, Nicholas.
Do you think Republicans on the committee should be able to read the entire, full, actual text of the bill?
I think they might say that they're reading it. They might say that they're understanding it. But that would probably be the triumph of man's hope over experience. It's hard stuff to understand.
And the American people as well.
Kind of I use it to, like, for example, credit card disclosures. If you actually read the stuff, you read it and say, like, dozens of pages, what does this say? And it's one of the reasons why we've directed, among others, banks to use plain language, plain English, to explain what they're doing, so that the gibberish, you can't read it and really know what it says.
The American people, do you think they should be able to read the bill online? Some have called for the bill to be online for at least 72 hours. Mm-hmm. Do you think they should be able to read the entire full actual text?
Yeah. If people who work here on a daily basis and work with the legislation, shape the legislation, we are pretty good at understanding the plain English version of the legislation. And I think that should be certainly online and made available. The idea of folks, and what I think we're doing on my website, is actually giving people an example of what legislative language looks like and how incomprehensible it can be. And I think if people have the chance to read that, they'll say, maybe it doesn't make much sense for either the legislators or me to read that kind of arcane language. It's just hard to decipher what it really means.
Last question for you. If members on the committee, whether it's Republican or Democrat, want to read the legislative language, if they feel they can understand it, will that language be available? Do you know where that language is? Have you seen any of the language or the full actual text of the bill?
In the time that I spent, I've seen plenty of legislative language, and I know more often than not it's almost incomprehensible as to what it means. Because what you do is you take certain language and you insert it in other parts of the law, other parts of the bill, and it frankly almost defies comprehension in many instances. Why that is of value and why someone should need to read that or feel a need, I don't understand. The idea of it's actually like, say, I get my credit card disclosure, and I have a 1 or 2 page summary written in plain English, and then I have like 40 or 50 pages written by an attorney or a bunch of attorneys that is almost impossible to understand. Why you'd insist on reading the stuff that's incomprehensible as opposed to the plain English language that's ordered by law so that people can understand it, that's beyond me.